Okay, I'd like to call to order this Board of Finance meeting for Tuesday, June 12th. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda, public comments. Sir.
Yeah. Larry Kravis, 15 Kellogg Street. I am also the chair of the Board of Ed. And I thought I'd give you a very quick update on the presentation that was made today by Rizzo, our construction manager, and by our architect, Perkins Eastman, and by Dr. Carver and Teryansky to the Department of Administrative Services. They had to present the design development phase of the work that is underway, and it went over fabulously. Christine and Terry were sent on their way after they went through the Rockwell presentation, and it went very good. And they have now the authorization to move on to the next phase of design, and that's the phase that will allow them to start going out for bid for Rizzo for bid for the subcontractors. One of the things that came along in the discussion that we have had that both Rizzo and the architect are working on are the concerns that they have for the rise in steel prices and now lumber pricing. So they, on their own, have started to look at add alternatives within the plan that continues to move along, and also value engineering, so that we don't get caught up in that at the end of this process. You need to do it now when it's happening to you, because you don't know how bad this is going to be, and you know whether it's going to stay where it is right now. But it's moving along well. They're upstairs right now. They're choosing the commissioning agent. There were two very good ones that came out of a group of 6, and the commissioning agent will work for the town and for the Board of Education and be the intermediary between the construction manager and the architect, so that we get what we're paying for, and so everything works from point A to point B through all kinds of weathers and systems and so forth. And after that, we're putting together an RFP to get the owner's representative on board. The important one to have right now is the commissioning agent, and that person, I suspect, will be on board this evening. That's it.
Larry, is the commissioning agent from until project complete, or do they finish
All the way
up
through.
early?
Yeah.
Yes. And we'll be specifically now, we needed to get the commissioning agent on board very quickly to work in the early stages of the designs that are underway, so that he can lend his expertise to that process, and also give some suggestions on changes that may be appropriately made, value changes that could be made. And yes,
Okay.
working that. Thanks.
Any other public comments? Given the relevance to the prior public comment, I will just announce that I have asked the Board of Selectmen to appoint Robert Palmer, the Board of Finance representative, for purposes of the school renovation. I have not heard back whether or not that request has been granted.
It was, we appointed about 2 hours ago.
Okay, thank you. So,
Was it unanimous? I'm just curious to vote.
Yes, well, one member was not present. Paul Zatkowski's out of town, but yes.
so thank you to Robert for volunteering even more time. You and Larry will be having lots of chats.
Join the club.
Okay, public comments finished. Correspondence. Okay, we have a series of prior board meeting minutes to approve. I'd like to start first with the minutes for the Thursday, May 17th meeting. This is a meeting for which we need to amend those minutes. by adding the following. And it is a motion to add the following to the Thursday, May 17th, 2018 minutes. The Board of Finance, and this is the substantive statement, the Board of Finance voted to establish the fiscal year 2018-2019 mill rate of 32.87 for real estate and personal property. The Board of Finance voted to establish the fiscal year 2018-19 mill rate of 32 for motor vehicle and supplemental motor vehicle. It's really just an administrative matter, so we can perhaps have discussion if there is any.
Wouldn't that have been made as a motion, or was it, or did, what happened was that you just said, that you had said what it was, and then somebody made a motion? I mean, I would think that the amendment would be that you made a motion to establish, that there would be two motions. One would be to establish the mill rate at 32.87, and the other one would be establish the, you know, property tax or whatever.
Yeah, I think for the, I'm sorry?
Am I wrong?
I think for this purpose, it's really just a matter of correcting or adding this statement to the minutes of that meeting
Okay,
in a typical summary fashion.
okay.
Because we already voted on it. I think
Yeah,
that
it
was-
really was just a matter of filling out that set of minutes.
Because if somebody read these, they wouldn't know what the mill rate was.
Right. But we did vote on that, we just did, it just didn't get recorded.
This is just a matter of capturing in the minutes of that meeting, in the typical summary fashion for minutes, that thought.
Would that be inserted at before the end, or was it, where was that gonna be inserted?
Probably under established fiscal year 2018-19 mill rate.
Okay.
If we need a motion to include that in the May 17th minutes, I'd be happy to make it, but I was not present at that meeting, so I don't know if I'm allowed to do that.
Well, let's avoid any doubt. I will make the motion that we add this language to the minutes for the Thursday, May 17th meeting.
I second.
Any further
Wouldn't the
discussion?
motion be to accept the minutes as amended? Because then we accept it, and we move on.
Well, why don't we add it first, and then we'll
Okay.
ask to accept it as amended. We'll do it we'll parse the steps. So first, we've got a motion, and second, no more discussion about adding the language. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay.
I would have to abstain, I was not at the meeting.
Fair enough. And now a motion to accept the minutes as amended for the Thursday, May 17th meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I have to abstain, I was not present at that meeting.
We have a series of other minutes to go through. I guess I'd first ask, well, let's just take them as they're in our package. First set of minutes is for the Tuesday, February 13th, 2018 meeting. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
There's,
I wasn't there.
there's just one correction that needs to be made. It says I was present, but then it says I was absent. I just think it was a typo.
Yeah,
So, I think I was absent. I
You
think I
were
was in
absent.
school that day.
you were
So,
absent, I copy and pasted it.
all right.
I think the copy that's in front of us showed that edit. Is that correct?
Probably not, because I printed all of them yesterday, but I will make that in the minutes.
All right, the copy that I have mentions that Brian was absent.
Okay.
So that seems to reflect the,
The copy I have, I must have an old copy.
yeah.
Yeah, mine says that he was absent too.
I just have an old one, so it's
Okay,
probably fine.
okay, good.
Mr. Chairman, in the interest of time, and I don't know procedurally we do this, could we not make a motion to discuss all of the minutes, and if anyone has an amendment to any minutes, they say, I need to change that. And then we could vote as a package. I don't know if that's procedurally okay, but it seems like
was here for some of the meetings, I wasn't here for all of them, so I'll have to, I don't know how that would work.
All right, let's just go through it very quickly, meeting by meeting.
You have to.
I have to abstain from everything.
So as to the February 13th, motion to accept the minutes,
So moved.
a second. Do you have a second?
Sure, I'll second.
All those in favor of accepting the minutes for the Tuesday, February 13th meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
I abstain 'cause I wasn't here.
On to the Thursday, February 15th, 2018 meeting. Entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I have both that say February 13th.
We had two meetings. We had the special meeting after the 15-minute meeting.
So, right, they're both stamped February 15th, but I think they both took place on February 13th.
We did.
Okay, just that Bob said the February 15th meeting as we announced it.
Oh, I think.
So I think the document's right, it's just that we're going on another February 13th meeting.
Yeah, there were two of them.
Back near the pump station.
6:45
Separate.
times.
I thought we were on the 20th. I'm lost.
So, yeah.
All right,
One was at 6:30 and one's 6:45.
I was referring to the 6:45 meeting initially, just taking them as in our packet. Now the question, you're right, Dee, sorry, February 13th, 2018, the 6:30 meeting. Motion to accept the minutes,
So moved.
second.
Second.
All those in, discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain.
All right, we're on to the February 15th, 2018 meeting.
That wasn't there.
I don't have those ones.
Yeah,
They're all in, they should all be in your package in order. Collated this afternoon. We'll share them. Make a motion to approve the February 15th meeting as submitted minutes.
Seconded? Does anyone want to second that motion?
Second.
All right. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as submitted for Thursday, February 15th, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Done. Next meeting is the Tuesday, February 20th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of February 20th as submitted.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Wednesday, February 21st. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes for the Wednesday, February 21st meeting as submitted?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I have to abstain from that meeting. I was not in attendance. Abstain from voting.
Next set of minutes is for the Tuesday, February 27th meeting.
Make motion to approve the minutes of February 27th as submitted.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes for Wednesday, February 28th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, February 28th as submitted.
Second.
Discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're almost there. March 6th, Tuesday, March 6th, special meeting. Entertain a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
So Dion, you have all that?
Cynthia, and who else
And
abstained?
Claudia.
Claudia?
Okay.
Okay. Last. Minutes for the meeting of Thursday, March 15th, 2018. Entertain a motion to accept, approve.
Question, wouldn't you list the absent people, is that just normal form, or does it matter? Because this just has who's present, I mean, obviously, everyone else is absent, but generally, don't you put who's absent?
Are you okay with them as it is, seeing that we know who the 7 members are on the board?
It would be easy to amend it with just the people who are absent.
Is that necessary? Isn't, doesn't?
I don't know, it just
have to-
seems for the sake of consistency, I'm always for consistency, but
All right, fair
I
enough.
don't
You
have
have to
to-
list the
Fair enough.
people that were absent.
Entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes, March 15th, as amended for adding those who were not present. Entertain a motion.
I move that.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? All right, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain too.
Let us try never again to have that many minutes in a single meeting. All right, moving down the agenda list, consideration of the tax collector's suspense list.
Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't remember who I am, I'm the tax collector, Ann Scacco. For those of you who may not have been on the board when the suspense list was presented, I present it once a year. It is all the accounts that I deem uncollectible, usually only motor vehicle and personal property. I then take all those accounts and I place them in collection. It takes them off of the books as an asset of the town, but they're still collectible to the town. You will, when you review this list, probably see people you know. There's usually reasons that people are on there, bankruptcy, death, address changes. The faster I get them in collection, the faster we can get the money in. Does anybody have any kind of questions on it?
And it looks like the total is $152,485.99.
That's correct.
Okay.
Which is significantly lower. Last year I had 300,000. This year, much less. We've gotten into a habit of, well, you have to do it once a year, but what I've been doing is if somebody's in there in prior years, and I've already given them to the collection agency, I then place them, the new ones in. So it had increased it for a while, but I've done it consistently enough now that we've seen a reduction this year. And the economy's better.
So you don't make the list, if you're on the list once, you don't get added again, basically, is what you're saying.
Each year you would. So if
Okay.
somebody's on here for 1 year, if they're on there for 1 year, I'm gonna take any subsequent years and add them in.
Okay.
So that when they pay the collection agency or the town itself, they're paying, they know you've paid everything with the town of Bethel. Not you've paid the collection agency for 2 bills and you've got 4 more with the town. It just clears it, keeps everything cleaner and cleared up.
Bob, historically, not to run through the debits and the credits of it, but how are these amounts reflected in the financial statements? Were they ever an income and then needed to be reversed?
No, right now they're receivable, and they're gonna be put in abeyance. I mean,
Okay.
we're not writing them off. We just.
No, by state statute, I have to place accounts that I deem uncollectible in suspense, which takes them off the rolls as an asset. And they still are a liability to the person who owes those taxes, but it takes it off as an asset to the town.
So, and for instance, the first two on here are reasoned uncollectible. So,
They're all gonna say uncollectible.
oh, they all will.
Yes, and the reason for that is just time saving for me. I have notes on all the accounts that, you know, say if it's in bankruptcy or deceased or all of that. Personally, even though things are public record, I don't like to put a lot of that information out there for everybody to see. I mean, certainly if you wanna know each person's reason for being on the list, you certainly can call me and I would be happy to let you know those reasons. It is public record.
So the oldest is 2012. Is-
Correct.
Beyond that, they're forgiven, written off?
No, not forgiven.
Written
These-
off.
No, they're there for 15 years.
Okay.
I'm going
That's
to
what I was
place
trying to
the,
understand.
it takes them off of, as an asset. It takes them off of the tax roll. They're on the tax rolls. They're in a separate bucket called suspense. It's always still collectible for 15 years, unless it's something uncollectible, which would be like a bankruptcy. If somebody's filed bankruptcy, that's an uncollectible tax, unless the person chooses. I can't enforce the collection of the bankruptcy. But, so they're still there, they're still owed, they're just not counted as an asset against the, it is an asset of the town, but if I've deemed it uncollectible, it's like, these are small ones, but for instance, if you had a big company, say you were a big city and you had a huge company that failed and went under, and they owed hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxes, you don't really want those on your books as an asset because you know they're uncollectible. And it's that, only on a smaller scale.
Are there any continuing collection efforts or?
Oh, yes, yep. These all go into collection. I have a collection agency that I work with. There is no cost to the town. The cost of the collection agency is only to the taxpayer that's delinquent. And for instance, so far this year on suspense, I've probably collected maybe, probably somewhere around 33,000 in tax and another 40,000 in interest. That's the collection agency has collected.
And remind us, that's not just these accounts, those are all the accounts that.
Well, 15 years
Of suspense.
of suspense. With the exception of the ones that I can't turn over to them, like bankruptcy. If I've sold real estate and there was a shortfall in a tax sale, that would also be a suspendable account.
My recollection is that it's a relatively new collection agent, maybe second or third
It
year.
is, yep,
And
this
are you
is
happy with
probably,
their performance?
yes, very happy with their performance. And the other agency, there was a 3% cost to the town. This agency, there's no cost to the town.
They take it out of the proceeds.
Yes.
So net, we end up in a better
Well,
place.
not out of the proceeds. The town always gets their full 100% that is owed. They are allowed by state statute to charge the taxpayer 15% of the cost. We were paying 18%, but state statute only allows 15% and 3% was covered by the town.
I make a motion to accept the tax collector's list. Motion to forward.
Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Moved. Next on the agenda is the consideration of funding the demolition, removal, and construction of the train station canopy in the amount of $175,490. Mike?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Boyle. For those that don't know me, I'm wearing two hats tonight. I chair the Old Train Station Committee. If we could come up with a better name than that, please let me know. And I also chair the Economic Development Commission. Janice is going to take you through the presentation. Janice is here as our EDC director. We have Beth Cavagnas here to give us a historic perspective. And we have Chris Sansini, right, who is one of the owners of our new brewery here in town. We're, yes.
Pat is taking care of the historic perspective, I'm taking care of the zoning and regulatory.
I stand corrected. Pat is taking care of the historic and Beth
The
is
regulatory.
regulatory and anything else that suits the fashion of the Board of Finance. Anyway, we're here, I feel like I'm meeting with the board of my bank, because we're here looking for a loan in the approximate amount of $100,000, and we get right to it, okay? And Janice is going to take you through the presentation to explain those numbers to you. The property itself has any money that's collected from the property, because this was deeded to the town by the state, has to be used on the property, cannot come to the general fund. So whatever we collect has to be put back into the property. We do have an account right now that's sitting with over $37,000, of which that money would be applied toward, in addition to the loan, and then, like I said, Janice is going to get to that. We have a safety issue right off the bat in terms of the current canopy. You'll see some pictures. It really is at risk, and right now, you know, depending on hopefully our loan gets approved and we can move forward. We have a schedule in terms of repayment of the loan. That schedule is somewhat open for discussion, only from a standpoint as being prudent property owners of the actual train station. We think it would be wise for us to maybe hold back some of the rent proceeds for cash reserves and so forth. So we're not coming and looking to spend any money from the town because it's self-sustained. At that point, let me just turn it over to Janice to take you through the presentation and hopefully answer any questions you may have.
As Mike had said, when we started looking for leases of the train station, it became very apparent that the canopy was in disrepair and that the temporary supports that were in place were starting to fail. So in July of 2017, the Old Train Station Commission met with Public Works Department and told them about the state of the canopy. At that point, they engaged an engineering firm to put together technical specifications for the demolition and the repair of the canopy. In February 2018, Rizzo Corporation provided the town with a proposal that was based on those specifications for the demolition and the repair of the canopy. The town at that point, it was really the Old Train Station Committee, was able to negotiate a 16% savings based on their first proposal, and the proposal was approved by the Board of Selectmen in May of 2018. After many on-site visits with the state, probably about 10 on-site visits with the state over a course of a year, the state agreed to pay for the demolition of the canopy, which is approximately $36,800, $24,000 being for the demolition and $12,000 for flagging.
As a minor point of interest, the actual canopy was technically owned by the state. We had been deeded the Old Train Station building. They actually owned the canopy. Being that they were the owners, we insisted on them paying for the removal of an unsafe canopy. So that's how cleverly Janice came up with the thought of being able to approach them for the funding to get the removal, and through many meetings, was able to get $38,000. So, well done.
So we did.
Just, I'm sorry,
Sure.
Mike, Janice, to be
Yeah.
clear,
Yeah.
I've been to the establishment purely for due diligence purposes. I noticed that it's kind of like two
There's
freestanding,
two sections of it.
and then it's almost like the overhang.
Yeah, it's actually, the canopies are actually built into the roof line
Correct.
of the building itself.
Correct.
Oh, so it's all one
Yes.
structure, it's not
Yes.
really three separate? or-
No,
You got it.
no, no.
Thank you.
So we did send a preliminary request for reimbursement to the Bureau of Public Transportation on June 5th, for a total amount of $36,800. And we're waiting for a response back from the state. I'll let Beth and Pat talk quickly about the historic property. But I just want to state that the property is on the National Register of Historic Places, and the state is going to have to review this project from that historical perspective. And as well, we do have a village district overlay zone, which requires us to do the same locally. And I'll let you guys speak to that, and then I'll continue with the other information.
It is, the building is on the state register, and it has been for quite a while, as a whole host of structures downtown have been. And I have photographs that I can show, going back to 1910, that building has always had a canopy. And we have 1910, 1915, we then go to 1953, 1955. So the building has never changed in all of these years. And I think what's important is that you not start taking a look at historic structures and determining if it's town property, but it's historic. Determining, okay, if we don't do this, we save X amount of dollars. You can't start cherry picking out historic structures and deciding what you're not going to replace. And a good example of something that was just rebuilt was the Hub stores on Greenwood Avenue that Jeff Bruno just rebuilt. And Jeff Bruno actually sought out the information on the building, which we provided to him, and he built that structure exactly as it was from the mid-1800s. And I think with the train station, you have to do the same thing. You have to look at it for what it is. You have to look at it for its historic nature in downtown Bethel, and make the decision, you're not going to start dismantling historic structures because of a cost to repair them.
And Pat, is that a legislative requirement or a more aesthetic requirement?
It's, well, when you're on the state register,
And
they
federal.
federal, they expect
This is on
you
federal.
to maintain your structures as they are, the historic structures as they are.
So the federal
The federal,
statute
the federal statute
says
was,
the whole thing's gotta stay up. Is that the right
I
interpretation?
would have to, you have to submit the application to the federal structure, and then they will give you the feedback on what you can and cannot do. But again, I'm saying, don't start cherry picking historic structures downtown. That is the wrong thing to do. Bethel has a very special place in everyone's heart, both residents of Bethel and people who come into Bethel. This is a great New England town. Let's not start tearing it apart piece by piece.
When you do look at the standards through the state, they do look at a number of things, and architecture is one of them. They look at the materials that you're using, and they're gonna look at the aesthetics and the architecture as well. So I have a copy of those standards if you're interested. But when we sent the financial request up to the state, we also had to provide them the specifications, and they're gonna be looking at that from a historical perspective, looking at the materials that we're proposing and looking at the structure we're proposing. They're also gonna be looking at the history of that structure and what that structure looked like.
So it sounds like there's some level of federal and state requirements to be
Oversight.
met.
Yeah.
I'd be curious, just as the business operating in that building, how do you view the canopies?
I view it exactly the same way, from a historical perspective, and also a functional and a safety perspective as well, because the structure is in pretty bad shape right now. But yeah, I defer to the historic significance of it as well, and the fact that it is on the historic registry, so it's very important.
Can I just speak to the
Are we
regulatory part of it?
question and answer, just because I don't know if there's presentations and then we're gonna ask questions, or if we're just going to do it this way?
Ask questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate the historic value of the canopy, but I have a couple of questions, and one is, I think it's great that you applied for the removal costs, but you don't know if they're gonna grant that, right? That's just
We
an
have,
application.
we have an email saying that they will
been
grant
approved.
it. Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
because they said have the application.
Yeah.
The second thing is that a structural part of the building, and I'm not talking about the historical value of keeping keeping it there or retracting it. Is it, if that is removed, does that compromise the structure of the building?
Well, right now, the canopies are actually built into the roof line of the building, so if you take away those canopies, there will be other structural things that will need to be done to make that roof line.
You mean if you were going to leave it without the canopy,
Yes.
or if you, okay.
If you, yeah, because if you look at, and I don't know if you can see it in one of the pictures.
No, I,
But the
I-
canopies are actually built into the roof line,
Right.
and it's one straight across structure. So
Got it.
right now, everything is being suspended by the supports, which are
Okay.
actually failing at this point.
So here's the next question, that it's gotten to the point where it's failing, so now it obviously has to be demolished. Because this is the kind of thing that in my conservative mind, I think of as a project that there should be a fundraiser, there should be a drive to restore this building. Because we have a historical society, we have people who would be very interested in contributing, and I just think that I think this is so important. On the other hand, we have things that we're gonna be taking out of, non-capital recurring, funds that we're gonna be, there's gonna be requests to take that out of the general fund.
Well, can I finish my presentation, because I
Yeah.
think
Okay,
that'll
but you're
answer,
not-
I think that'll answer some of your questions in
Okay.
terms of the financing of the project, which I think is what you're getting at. So, on the next page, you'll see, in terms of what we're seeking, we're looking for $175,490 as a loan, to be approved by you. At that point, we will be able to the state will pay the town $36,800, which will bring that loan amount down to $138,690. The old train station account currently has $37,600 in it that can also be applied to the loan, which will bring that loan amount down to $101,000.90. As Mike stated before, any of the money from the leasing goes into a separate account that has to be used for the train station property. It's not going to the town.
By deed.
By
I know-
deed,
I
yeah,
know.
it's not,
I-
so that
very,
has to
very
go
familiar.
into a separate account. Once, and then at that point, the old train station committee will need to determine the schedule of the payment of the loan. Because basically what we're looking to do is have the leasing payments go towards the payment of that loan.
I'm sorry, what payments?
The leases
The rent?
payments, yeah,
Okay.
the rent for the property will go towards paying back the loan. And then we would be able to enter into a contract with Rizzo Corp.
Jane, can you tell me what the rent is on one?
Yeah, yes, I can. So the,
2601.
yeah, but it goes up. So if you look on the page of loan payment, I can run through that with you. So with the cost of the project being $175, the state reimbursement of $36, and the old train station account balance, we're looking at $101. The lease payment schedule that the current leasee has it's $2,601, but that will change as of 1/2019. It goes up to $2,679. In 2020, it's $2,759, and 2021, it's $2,842. So with a loan amount of $101,000, if we applied all of their payments towards that loan, it could be paid off in September of 2021. The old train station committee has already talked about meeting again to provide a payment schedule. We don't necessarily want to put 100% of what we are bringing in towards that, just so we have some cash funds available to us if other things need to be done to the property. But under the circumstances that we say 100%, we could pay off that loan by September of
So
2021.
how much would you hold back?
That's to be
Yeah, that
determined.
would be determined by the old train station committee. And if you had suggestions, we could
Well,
bring
I
that
mean,
back to the
right,
committee as well.
yeah, right now, we're basically showing you, hey, if we pay the 100%, it's gonna take a couple of years.
But that would be the concern, is that you would never put 100%, because then you would be in the lurch in case something
Well, that's
came up.
that's why I opened up my preamble by saying,
that's why I'm
we wouldn't
asking
suggest
for
that we
ballpark.
pay you
It
100%.
could be 100 a month,
Well, I
it could
mean,
be 500,
typically,
it could be 1,000.
well, from a commercial standpoint, if we were able to put aside $500-600 a month into a cash reserve, that would be a prudent, taking
So then-
essentially 20%,
It would take about 8
approximately.
years or 9 years.
Well,
to pay
if
that.
that's, we have not made any specific, there's two things. You guys as the bank basically could say, here's the terms. then we'll have to figure out, based on what you guys dictate to us as terms. We're asking you to, in your consideration for the loan, to think about what we're trying to accomplish, which is keep a actual pristine, beautiful old train station. And my compliments to the new owners who have invested a considerable amount, for those of you who have had an opportunity to visit. We want to maintain that level, because it has been and is a magnet for the town, no question.
Like, I come from kind of a banking background, so I get that.
You know what, so then you,
Right, we want to keep the asset pristine, we don't want it to be a wasting asset. Just give the board a sense for what kind of, I take it's repairs, maybe the.
yeah, like
parking
repairs,
lot.
it could be a roof, it could be, we're responsible for the infrastructure of the building as the landlord. So, right now, in my way of thinking, if I could take 20% of our current collectible rent and use that for a cash reserve, then that would be prudent to take that $100,000 loan and pay back the town over the period of time that we do.
Historically, what kind of other costs have you had regarding this property? Ongoing costs?
We haven't, since 2014, we really haven't put much money into the property. When the bike shop was in there, they had invested a lot of money to get the property up to where it was functional. Broken Symmetry has already invested $300,000 just in the property itself. That's not including any of the equipment. In 2017, we put in about $10,000, and in 2016, we put in about another $10,000.
And when you say you put in $10,000, you did some type of
Pave the parking
repair
lot,
work,
yeah.
parking?
Yeah.
But that came from your cash reserve.
Yes.
Correct.
So the idea is to be able to keep up with the paving and whatnot
Maintenance,
with.
maintain.
Right.
Maintenance of the building. Right now, the building, we don't have any anticipated costs. The last bill we had was for, that these guys discovered when they were building the kitchen, is that there was the lower floor had rotted out, and that had to be replaced. I think we paid, what, $3,600?
Yeah, there were rotten floor joists and the cement slab, which was
$9,700. So that was the last expense we had. So right now, we're not aware of any issues, thank God, with the building. But if we need a new roof 15 years from now, it'd be nice for us to have in the balance something that over time is built up so that we can cover the new roof or something that may be unexpected, as opposed to taking 100% of the collectible rent and paying down the loan.
And what the committee would probably do is look at potential costs in the future to determine what that percentage would most likely be.
Can you tell me how you guys came to choose Rizzo? Was this job put out to bid, or did you just decide Rizzo? Like, is there a list of approved contractors for historic districts, or how does it go?
There's a list of contractors that have the ability to work on rail tracks, and Rizzo is basically the one.
The only one.
It's the rail track that really.
So a lot of the money's because Metro North is going to require their employees.
Yes, there's
to
Flagmen, flaggers.
There's requirements just by working on the tracks. You can't work 15 minutes before a train, you can't work 15 minutes after a train.
And
So through a day, I mean, you're talking about 2 or 3 hours of time that you can't work near the tracks.
And the actual workers that work for Rizzo have to carry a certain certification in order to work within the rail area. It is extremely involved. It's amazing the costs associated with it. And Rizzo did do work in the Danbury Rail areas, so it's a very specialized contractor that you need in order to do this work. Very specialized.
As a business owner and as a homeowner, seeing something that costs in total $175,000, even though we have buckets of money for a canopy, shocked me. All right, I mean, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I could have Brian build that thing for
20 grand.
Okay, so, but it's once
We'd have to
again.
get you out of jail first,
Yeah.
once you went over there to start to build.
Once again, all of our hands are tied by the realities beyond our control of Metro North and the state of Connecticut and the rail system.
Just out of curiosity, has the committee, like, is there gonna be any type of like plaque with pictures or anything historical like the town could actually enjoy based on the fact that, you know, the money's all going back into this building? I mean, it might be cool to
That's a
have-
great, have
have something
That's a
It's
great
already there.
suggestion.
constructed.
It's
There
already
is one
there.
picture, there's one, is there only
There's a
one there?
box, there's a tour box on the building. If you use your smart device up against the QR code, it takes you out to the Historical Society and you will see other photographs of the building.
Maybe we could
I
jazz
looked
it
at
up
that
for
picture
75.
Saturday.
Maybe we could jazz it up a little.
No, but adding more to it would be, that's a great suggestion, but there is a beautiful picture there showing the history, and everything that Pat said a minute ago is there for public view.
I wanna see some whiskey barrels with flowers or something like that.
Well, in one cost we didn't talk about, we did into the 175,000, we built in a 15% contingency. So I know we didn't talk about that number, it's under the, where it says old train station canopy cost, so, so really the project, the bid was not $175,000, but we did build in that 15% contingency.
I'm sorry, I can't, where is that, Janice? I'm not-
It's on the bottom of the,
Yeah, so old train station
canopy cost 15%.
I have a question about Rizzo's letter, what it says it doesn't include, so abatement, do we know if there's anything that needs to be abated there?
Not that we know
Not
of.
that we know.
Not that we know. 'cause I'm-
Well, it's a wooden
It's a wooden
canopy.
structure. Look, I'm-
I don't think they insulate it.
I do check that for lead
Surprised
paint or
it's
anything.
happened.
Yeah, I mean,
Surprised.
we have had the engineers look at it, we haven't gotten anything back report-wise at all.
It was before, pre-asbestos.
No, I'm just thinking about lead paint,
Yeah.
things along.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Engine-
cheap, it's cheap to test and get a T-clip test to prove the dumpster.
Good to know.
We did have an engineering study over the entire canopy, nothing came
Would
back.
they have come
Came
back
clean.
with that? Okay. If they checked for that, that's great.
So, like, in terms of purpose, what purpose would this serve, what purpose does it serve now? What purpose would it serve perhaps for your business or some other town purpose?
Well, right now, as Janice was saying before, it is structurally connected to the building, and the support posts that come down from that canopy, they're attached to that canopy, and the canopy is attached to the roof of the main building. So there is a shared support of the building in that instance. So from a structural standpoint, it's very important to have it repaired. If it's removed and there's weakness set into the main building because those supports are gone, then we may have to do something else. It might require some other project to put in some other additional supporting, I'm not sure. I don't know. So that would maybe cause other issues. So, I don't wanna open up a different can of worms and create another kind of project.
Well, no, the building would have to be structurally sound, right?
Right.
We are all enjoying your
Right.
restaurant and pub, so we want it to be sound. But my question is, I mean, is there, I can't see what happens underneath this. Is this roadside, is it trackside, are there tables, and can you hang out underneath it? Like, what's the purpose of this?
It's really, the purpose, there is a structural need because of what we talked about, attached the way it is attached roof line wise. But primarily, it's a train station.
The purpose
And-
was to shield
And,
people waiting for the train.
the purpose is to shield people, but that is.
That was the original purpose.
That was the original purpose when people commuted from there. Now it's turned into the centerpiece of our town from a standpoint of the restaurant district that surrounds it and the people that are drawn by the New England aesthetics of, I'm in a small New England town with a train station that was there from Pat, what was it?
It was built, late 1800s, the original burned
Late
down in
1800s.
1898.
So you just don't see that many pieces of history floating around. And I do agree with what Pat said earlier, that, you know, our responsibility and the baton that I'll pass and that you'll pass to the people that follow behind us is to keep those historic properties for the future generations.
Daleen, on the right side of the canopy, so there's the left side and the right side, it also abuts the patio, so you have direct access to that canopy
That
from
was
the
kind of what
patio.
I was wondering, is
Yeah.
is this a shade provider?
Yeah,
Is
it
this
does provide some
potentially-
shade, it does provide some, know,
Protection from the rain.
Some
So
prote- yeah,
it
some-
enhances your ability to
does.
serve outside,
Right.
which we don't have that many
Correct.
places
It
to do
does.
that. and
That's
the
correct.
thing.
Even if it didn't, I'm totally sold on preserving the history of it. I don't care if it's just, you know, a couple of sticks with a thing, if it's the part of the history. My issue is always about money. So and not about being cheap about it, but other ways to get money. And my question is, are there gonna be any efforts whatsoever? Because to me, this seems like a perfect opportunity for patronage, for some sort of sponsorship, for some kind of thing. So, to raise money, and I just, you know,
But we have money.
oh, okay, but you're asking us for money.
We're asking for a loan. We're not asking for a dime of taxpayer money.
Right, but it's gonna take, I think it's gonna take quite a while.
And
Well,
then,
But I mean, I just wanna know, are there any,
Bob,
are there any
from a
plans?
banking standpoint, I don't know, I mean,
Where
the
does-
term of our loan is not that long by
Where does
standards.
your money come from? The rent?
The rent, correct.
Right, so, I guess my question is, you're really asking for upfront money?
We're asking for a loan, which
For a
is
loan.
what a loan is.
We're
Right.
asking for a loan to improve a town asset.
I get it, I'm
Okay.
all for it.
Okay.
I just, like, I'm into
It's a loan,
fundraisers.
it's not
Okay.
like, you
That's
know,
all.
Can I also just say one thing? I mean, there's a precedent for this too.
yeah.
The Bennett property about 5 years ago needed $60,000 to restore the kitchen and a little snack shop there. And through their rents in the springtime for the rental charges during the course of the year, they repay the town, and that loan is down to about $17,000 at this point.
same with the dredging. that we
Yeah,
did.
that's it. Yeah,
That we
so,
had a town meeting
I mean,
on.
this is not unprecedented, you
With
know.
all due respect, we just voted for like $800-something-thousand for police station, so with all due respect, it has nothing to do with anything other than we've had experiences where we've had,
Well, if you look at the numbers that
situations.
Mike is talking about, if he holds back $600 of the $2,600 right now, that's $24,000 a year that he can pay off, or they will pay off. All right, that's a 4-year payback on a loan.
So, if I understand this, no town dollars will be used because the loan will be paid back by the rent.
100%,
Okay. It's a town asset. I
correct.
don't know why we're wasting time discussing this, and I would make a motion to approve the Board of Selectmen's recommendation to appropriate a sum not to exceed $175,490 for the demolition, removal, and construction of the train station canopy.
May I ask 2 questions?
Go ahead, I made the motion, so.
Well, fair enough, why don't we,
I'll second it.
okay.
Thank you, Bob.
Now discussion. Mike, Janice, it seems like you're draining your account balance, right? The $37,600 to reduce the loan.
Correct.
amount. How comfortable are you doing that in light of potential future repair needs building up at 500, a fund rebuilding at 500?
It's a very, very fair question. We discussed it at our committee meeting, but we, in good faith, and once again, I'm a businessman and I'm acting in this capacity, talking to my bank. I wanted to show that we have skin in the game, okay? And that we're not looking for, we have an asset, we have that money set aside. Yes, I mean, if we had the flexibility to keep some of that, that would be great and push out a little bit. But I don't know what parameters you guys may put on the loan. And I'm just trying to demonstrate by our actions beyond words that we're very much committed to maintaining this asset.
I actually was gonna ask the same question. To me, it would seem more sense to keep a much larger portion of your cash reserve and increase the payment that you're gonna make to
Well,
us,
if-
because that way, you have a catastrophic
I-
problem,
I
anyone
would,
doesn't ask for
I,
another.
if we could take half of the money that we currently have
I
in
was
our
thinking
account
that.
and keep it, and hearing the temperature read from what everyone here is, well, not necessarily everyone, but from a couple of the members, then, that would be fantastic with my thanks.
Just as a landlord, I would, the asset's gotta be worth 250, 300,000. I mean, my suggestion would be you have to have a minimum of 20,000 in cash
Well,
reserves for
and-
rainy day.
which is almost half of what we're getting. And it's obviously building monthly.
I think it's just a better deal.
So, I mean, that would just, that would take the 101 up by 20 grand.
Recalculate the numbers.
Yeah,
for
but,
us?
you know, we would do that. We still, as an old train station committee, would still set aside, like Bob had said, we're thinking $600 a month to keep as, to continue to build up the reserve, and with a payment of $2,000 a month towards the
You're
loan.
keeping 20,000, you're adding 10 months. And
That's correct.
I'm assuming we're gonna get.
If you
more
guys,
interest.
if you guys gave us that flexibility, thank you.
Who determines the terms of it? I've never experienced the Board of Finance, determining
I have one more question that's
terms.
in
Oh, well,
line
that's
with
one of my
that.
questions, okay.
Yeah. Like, as a bank and as a town, we have other debt outstanding. So these are proceeds that we could use to pay off other debt. We as a board should think about applying an interest rate to this loan for purposes of making the town whole for the amount of loan that's outstanding. I see Marty's not liking that.
Excuse me just for a second. I don't know how you charge the town interest.
The same amount that we have,
No.
it's not the town,
It's
it's
a
a
town
proprietary fund.
asset. It's not. It is a town asset. It's the same as what you have up at the school. It's the same that you have at this other trains, you know, it's the same thing.
And Marty, why don't they just go out and go get a bank to lend them money?
Because they can't do it the same reason with the Public Utilities Commission. They don't have the authority to go out on their own as a train station. They're an agent of the town. That's why they're here.
As we are.
Yeah, that's right. That's
And so
correct.
we, I think it kind of leverages off of Cynthia's point, we are working hard to pay off our short-term debt, right, with our run-up to 2022. Right, we all know what we're facing in 2022. And it just seems that, Mike, consider it, Janice, consider it, it makes the town, as an economic matter, whole. And we're not looking to make money, just throwing it out there as using whatever the rate is on our short-term debt.
How does the town pay itself interest? It's the town's asset. It's the town's
Well, in
money.
effect, as the real asset, well, there's two assets. There's the bricks and mortar real estate, and there's the ongoing business.
Which they can't do anything with, nobody can, unless it goes through several different boards and a town meeting. And that's what you have here too, you have a town meeting.
They
That needs-
continue
That
to
hasn't been
operate.
brought up, but any monies here that you're willing to come up with, they have to be approved by a town meeting. It's not like you're gonna write a check tomorrow. We gotta have a town meeting. The people of the town of Bethel have to make the final decision.
Bob, do you feel we'll have the cash flow so that, the concerns that Bob has, brought up, we'd, be able to address them? I mean, the
Yeah, I mean-
175 isn't going to make us not be able to make a payment on something else.
No, I mean, look what we did with the utilities, we were over $4 million in debt there, and there was no interest that was ever charged on those loans.
Mhm.
We didn't charge any interest on the Bennett property or even the dredging. I mean, like Marty says, we're lending the money to ourselves, basically.
So Bob, when we do that, do we establish payment
No.
dates when it's going
No,
to be paid
no,
off?
all we did was, as they collected the rents at the end of the season, we just transferred a certain amount of money back into the town account, and we left an operating, a small, like a kitty account, you know, petty cash.
Okay,
And then they started the following year with that money, and they worked up again.
And who made those decisions in terms of how much to transfer back in, you know, on a monthly basis? What was the basis of that decision?
Or the terms.
Well, it was just based on how much money was in the account at that particular time.
Oh, 100% of it went back.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, we left a small amount of money just in case they needed for any particular, you know, what you call it,
Contingency.
dumpsters that were there, or any utilities that they might have to pay, things like that.
But Bob, you manage
So-
those accounts, right?
Hmm?
That's what I was gonna
You
say.
manage both of those accounts, but you don't manage the money.
No, they manage this
We do
account as
everything.
well.
You manage the historical, the.
Yeah, this account is also
Okay.
a line item on,
So you're not, you're.
And just remember, you can't use, if this account
Oh, no, we're
accumulates
acting
to $1
on behalf
million,
of the town.
you can't do anything with that money except use it towards that building and that property.
So is there a prudent amount? I mean, I've heard 20,000. is there a prudent amount that we should keep in that account as a emergency reserve while we?
I would
do
say at this point, considering the amount of work that the bike shop did, the amount of work that Broken Symmetry has done, I mean, that building is in very good shape. The parking lot is in very, it was just done, what, 5 years ago?
Right.
So it's probably good for another 15 years. I don't think you're gonna have any major concerns on the building itself, you know? So,
Ryan?
I'm gonna respectfully disagree with the cash reserves, just because I've seen crazy things happen. Uninsured motorist drives through the front door of your
We had a
restaurant,
tornado
and we
just
eat it.
recently, so.
I would like to see this just kind of structured like a construction loan, where we approve the amount of whatever it is, 175,000. They draw down on it in terms of Rizzo's schedule. And at the end of the payment, which doesn't sound like it's gonna be the full 175, because I highly doubt you're gonna run into 20,000 in contingencies on this small of a project, and with state reimbursement, and then just schedule like a 6-year, amortization where we want it paid off in 6 years, and, even if they wanna keep some in cash reserves, we can do a balloon payment at the very end. Something that you would find in a construction loan that's transferring over to, a more conventional ARM type loan or something like that. Obviously, the interest, I'm a pretty fiscally conservative person. I would recommend giving them 0% just because it's a historic structure, and hopefully it's gonna be enjoyed by many in the town, who I think it already is. It's kinda cool to see our old train station kinda.
It's probably the
Back to
coolest
us.
building in Bethel, honestly.
But that would be my suggestion to the board, to just approve the amount, let them draw down based on Rizzo's schedule, and make sure that the work has been completed before we allow them to draw it down, whoever you select to oversee that, to make sure we're that, and then at the end, we'll just amateurize it. Really, if they borrow 120,000 at 2,000 a month, that's, it's a pretty quick payoff. So I
That would
think,
be fine.
I think that's pretty fair.
Alternatively though, Bob, since you're managing both accounts, and let's say we're on a regular basis taking whatever we have, rents, whatever, and pay back the town, and let's say that all of a sudden there is a microburst that, we have to pay something in order to fix it. What would the process be at that point in order to move money back?
well, the only thing you would have
Come back to
there in that case is it's an insurance recovery issue, so $10,000 deductible.
Well, something that's not covered, just hypothetically. What would be what would be the process for you to say, okay, we need $20,000 back in this account, in the train station account? Rather than leave 20,000 there as a contingency basis, to move $20,000 back, what would be the process?
Well, it would become a due to, due from, just like it is with the utilities. So we could easily move money back into the train station account and pay for whatever.
But why put them under that stress of feeling tight?
Well,
leave
only for
them-
the purposes of paying off the loan quicker, that's all. But it's a town asset, so, the money is there. It's not like we have an issue with, a general fund that's depleted. We're in very good shape, and this is a perfect use for those funds. And it's gonna get paid back too.
By leaving the money in there, it just makes it easier for a maintenance schedule. Even though we say in 15 years, they're still gonna have to paint, the parking lot's gonna need repairs. It's gonna have to be kept up. Leaving that cash balance in there, it's really not hurting. We're really talking about 10 months. 2,000
Correct,
a month,
for 20 grand.
that's 10 months. If we're given a 0% loan anyway, I don't think 10 months is gonna break the town. So.
Who is overseeing the project?
Well, the old train station committee, which is I chair, Janice, Beth, Bob, and Rich Straight.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with building and site?
No.
Okay, my question.
Okay, there's a building permits issue.
Right.
Building official
Yeah.
is involved. If there's other issues, we contact our engineer, we contact Public Works, that kind of stuff.
So if we were to leave the money in the account, make for a $2,500 a month lease payment, it's roughly a 6-year payback. right, at 2,500.
On 175.
Mhm.
You're talking about the full amount.
Yes.
So he'd say, don't give us any money, is what he's saying, except what the state's gonna reimburse you.
Well,
Which is like 40 grand.
So,
36.8.
I mean, if you want, so you're saying, well, just give us the state money. Keep all the money that's in the current account, 37 grand, right?
Well, you don't have
And
the
then give
state
you
money
t-
yet, right?
No, but when we get the state money,
Then
which
you
is
pay down.
in actual process now, so pay that now, then keep the 37 in there and pay you guys 2,500 a month. Done. Where do we sign?
Can we do that?
Let me just say something. First thing is, you have to remember, we have to write this in a form of a motion that's going out to everybody that's out there. I think that what Brian said probably makes some sense. The easiest way to write it would be, you're borrowing the $170,000 to be paid back upon completion of the project over a 6-year period from the funds, from the enterprise funds that are from the parking lot, from the building and the parking itself. That's what I would do, pretty simple.
That's what was done for when we dredged McCower Park. It was basically to appropriate the sum at that time of $58,000 for the dredging of Bennett Memorial Park, and that the funds for the dredging be repaid over a period of time not to exceed 10 years from the rental income.
Same
There you
thing.
go.
How
So,
long
you
is the
know,
lease for Broken
be
Cemetery?
something similar.
How long is the lease?
10 years.
10 years.
With the 10-year option.
Yeah.
Yeah, with an option.
Without-
But I think that's the easiest way. You know, you don't want
The rent
people
goes up.
coming in and trying to understand what they're, it's a lot easier to do it that way, I think, anyway. And that way you know at outset where it's gonna be paid off.
Thank you for agreeing with me.
Well,
It feels good.
Yeah, we have that on tape.
Thank you. Well, we're gonna play that back.
All right, so
So is someone?
Good.
the term is gonna be less than 6 years. It's whatever. You'll take a principal amount of 175. You'll deal with the 490, right? The 175 paid back over 2,500 a month, monthly schedule. And that's
Perfect.
gonna,
I would make the motion that we approve the 175,000 to be paid down over the course of 6 years, minimum of $2,500 a month payment, any portion
I
of
already made a motion, Brian.
did.
There's a motion made and seconded on the floor. And, Marty,
said
do
it-
we have the right to dictate the terms or just the dollar amount?
Technically, it's just the dollar amount.
Okay,
Because
well
the
then I'll
board
go back to
selected.
my original motion that Bob seconded.
I don't remember your original motion, because you
To
didn't want to
approve
discuss it.
to approve the amount of $175,490 as recommended by the Board of Selectmen for the replacement of the canopy project, blah, blah, blah. And that was seconded by Bob. So at this point,
Nothing
unless
about
somebody has any other discussion, I
I have
would
a
call the
question for
question.
Marty. So Marty, would you be writing that, would you write out the terms in the resolution for the town meeting? How would that be worded?
That's what I'm getting at. I don't, I mean, no offense to the Board of Ed people that are here, but that was a nightmare to deal with that.
Yeah.
It took forever to put it together, and, you know, and I just think, you know, I still think that, I agree with what Wendy says, but I think what you ought to do is, you ought to put just a time period when you expect it to be paid back. Don't try to toe it into, it's gotta be $2,500 a month, you know, 6 years. And I think, and I'm just saying 6 years because of what the amount of money that they're having coming in, but at the same time, you have to remember that, you know, they're not gonna, I think it should start when they finish, when the project is finished. The 6 years starts from that. That's what I
Just like
think.
a construction loan.
That's right.
So can we amend the motion though to say that the amount should be paid back within 6 years?
From completion of the project.
From completion of the project.
I amend my motion to include that.
Well,
but then what is the expectation for?
You have to get a second for that.
yeah,
I thought we had-
you need a second, I meant.
Oh, okay, then I seconded Bob's amendment.
Okay.
Robert's
And
amendment.
what's the understanding as to the amortization? How is it going to be paid? How do we state that as the asset for the town?
I think what Marty just said is that it's just over a period of years, 6 years. It's not a specific amount of money.
Because you could have a balloon payment, or you could have more.
Well, we're gonna get a state reimbursement, we're gonna also, we may not use the contingency, we may not take all this, we have the money.
It doesn't make sense.
Look, I'm not looking to be difficult, right, but what I think we need to do, with the asset that's now going to be on the town's book is a loan. And if we don't know what that principal balance is, and we don't know what the interest rate is, we don't know how to value that asset.
You'll know what the principal balance is when they finish it.
Right.
You'll know what's owed when the job is finished. It could end up being a lot less.
And then what's the payback, what's the amortization schedule?
Well, we're saying
doesn't-
2,500.
It's the 6 years, they gotta pay, they can make up their mind what they want.
Right.
I would leave it in the hands of the committee to make a decision as to how much they feel they can comfortably make payment back, knowing that it's gotta be paid back by a certain date. That's all I would do. And I have to tell you, Bob mentioned it before, it's unfortunate that, they're here today doing it the right way. We spent $3 million on the Public Utilities Commission in the previous administration doing it the wrong way, which basically was just sliding money over without ever discussing it in public, without going to the people. So I don't think that they should be restricted to that point when the assets there, the monies we have right now are coming in, and I don't see a problem. And I gotta tell you, I understand the historic aspect of the building and the canopy, but my biggest concern is we could get sued, big time. That thing is a disaster over there.
That's why I wanna be a lender and not an
Yeah.
owner.
Yeah, but-
Lender
We
knows
are.
when its
We are.
No,
amortization
it's-
schedule is.
We are an owner.
But
We
if
own
they
it.
get, fair enough, as the Board of Finance and the general town, not the proprietary fund, right, as the town, our asset, we prefer it to be a loan and not an equity interest in a real property ongoing business. The way that gets certified, right, is by looking at the terms of the asset. The asset will have principal, the asset will have interest, it'll have an amortization schedule.
That's not gonna stop a lawsuit. That's got,
And
what'll
absolutely
happen
nothing
is
stops
it's
a
something.
lawsuit.
it's
Anybody
something-
can sue anybody, well, you know that as well as
Wow,
I do.
It's a town asset. It's not like this is something that we're just separating and putting out there. That's not the case.
But it's in a
It's the
proprietary
same.
fund, it is separate.
I disagree.
Well, here's my bigger concern. We've got an ongoing business with a dilapidated roof.
Right.
Yeah, we gotta
How
do
is
it.
that business functioning with that liability? I mean, that's a real concern now that we've all talked about this in
That's why-
public,
Well,
right?
that's why we have to
That's why
do
we
this
need
and
to
not
get it
a fundraiser.
That's the number one reason why
We
it
put a
needs to
fence
be
around
done.
that,
But
right?
what's
Yeah,
the top?
we, right now, we have,
It's
we
not
approved
law.
putting a fence, a temporary fence in, because of exactly that.
Well, it's in Rizzo's letter, aren't they
Yeah,
gonna put up the temporary?
Yeah, they're
fence?
temporary
They're
fence.
putting up a construction fence.
You know, so that this way, nobody can go near it. I mean, it's,
But you have to go to town meeting, and that's not gonna happen tomorrow, so is somebody putting up some kind of tape or something and say like.
We're putting up a construction fence again. We have to wait for the state. The state provides flaggers. They've delayed us 3 times.
right,
So does that affect?
that's.
Are people from your establishment walking under that roof right now?
People will walk under it, we go out there and we say, hey, you shouldn't stand under there and you should go to the patio. And so I don't know if there's any kind of executive power to say, hey, we better just not let anybody under there, let's just put the fence.
Well, can't
You know,
put,
so
like, crime
I mean,
scene tape up or something?
it's definitely
I
like
think
a safety
well,
issue.
The safety issue is best
It's
addressed
a
by
problem.
making the loan, but letting these
Correct.
guys do what they have to do as quickly as possible.
Correct.
I don't think there's any question about that.
Right.
And maybe it's just me, and I
Yeah.
will defer to the majority on the board. I think if we're talking about a town asset, you wanna kinda structure it like it's an asset that the town will recover on. And so to me, if it's a loan, there's a principal balance, there's interest, and there's an amortization schedule. If folks don't wanna do that and leave it more open-ended,
But we're gonna have
Well,
to,
I
we're
think-
gonna
I
have to
think
meet
the
as a
idea-
committee anyway and create a schedule that we're gonna have to provide to Bob. So he knows what he's taking in and what needs to apply to that account. So we're gonna be providing him with that information anyway.
and Jess, you envision that being a stated amortization?
I'm not, the committee's gonna have to meet and look at those numbers and figure out what would be, and take some of your recommendations and figure out what that would be. I don't wanna speak for the committee.
Well, I, as a member of the committee, I always look to Bob to give us good guidance as far as him being the controller for the town of Bethel and familiar with these type of projects over the last 10 or 20 years. That's who I look to, and if Bob wasn't on here, I appreciate everybody else's work, but Bob is the town. He's the comptroller. I mean, if he can't help figure out what you're talking about as far as amortization and things of that level, and know what's fair and equitable to the asset and to the town, why am I here?
I think the appetite of the commission, or the old train station committee, I should say, is to retire the debt as quickly as possible in a prudent manner that allows us to have a reserve in the event that we have some issues with the building. And we have a solid group of Bethel residents, Bob and Beth included, to help us be able to accomplish that goal.
Yeah, I think because it's all Bethel, we say we expect it back in six years, and then with their prudence, they'll do it. I don't think we need to set up any specific payment amounts or going forward. It's all Bethel Town property, and it's Bethel Town citizens managing it.
It's going back to what Brian said.
Can I make one more comment, please? In the past, if you go back and you take a look at the motions that we've done in the past, because this is the same thing as the PUC. Basically, we're asking, what's being asked for is you put up the good faith of the town so they can get the money. What you'll notice if you go and you read those motions, every time I put in there that where the actual money comes from in order to make these loans is up to the graces of the comptroller's office. So in other words, he has some idea, he has some flexibility in order to deal with the money, to move the monies around. And we've done that. If you go back and you look at all of those motions, they all have in there something about the comptroller being the
So
one
we
to
should
make the
amend
final
this
decision.
motion, is that what you're saying?
Oh,
To
you
send it
could,
to the-
you could, but I'm just saying that that's the way that it's been done in the past, and that's the way I envision it being the same way. Because somebody, because no offense to the board doesn't know the day-to-day functions and where the monies are coming in and where they're going out, but his office does.
I have no problem with that.
Okay. No more discussion. It's kind of a question.
Well, should we have Marty tell us how we should amend
Yeah,
the
I
motion
would
so it
feel
works?
more comfortable with Marty telling us what it's like.
I mean, you said you're not happy with the motion on the
Yeah.
table, just tell us what the motion so we know it'll work.
No, I think you come up with the same amount of money that was in the initial motion,
Yep.
and that you simply indicate that it's to be paid back over a period of 6 years after completion of the project, and that the monies to pay it back make it clear to the taxpayers it's not coming out of their pocket. That where it's coming from is, it's gonna be coming from the enterprise fund for the train station. And that,
Managed by the controller.
managed by the
At the
controller's office.
discretion of the
Right.
controller.
Wendy, will you amend your motion? so
I will
that-
amend my motion
To say what
to
you said.
reflect everything that was said.
What
The-
you
The
said.
canopy money,
All right, Marty, so when you guys.
the
ready to
6
vote?
years,
Can I
the
just
account.
read
What do you
what
have?
the last motion was,
Please.
and then what? So Robert Palmer amended the motion, and Wendy Smith seconded it, for the motion to include that the payment will be paid back in whole within 6 years, starting the day of completion. Okay, that was the amended motion. Now, the first motion that you made was let me see here. Wendy Smith to approve the amount not to exceed $175,490 for the funding of the demolition, removal, and construction of the train station canopy. Okay?
Okay, and I would amend that to reflect Marty's comments, that the controller's office, or that the funds come from the funding, the
Be paid back.
repayment comes from
Loan.
the,
Enterprise.
the repayment of the loan comes from the enterprise fund known as
The old
the
train
old
station.
train
Same
station
station.
account. And, something as determined by the controller's office.
We paid over 6
We
years.
paid no, we are already.
That's already
Okay.
in.
So then under the direction of the.
Okay.
Under the direction of the
And
comptroller.
the access of the funds is at the discretion, or the whatever, location accounts or whatever, is at the discretion of the controller.
Distribution of funds.
Distribution.
Okay, funds known as the Old Trade Station account under the direction of the comptroller. Okay,
So
all
when I
right.
do-
So would you
sorry,
like for me to
yeah,
read the
that-
whole motion?
Please.
So the motion is to approve not to exceed, or to approve the funding of to approve the funding not to exceed the amount of $175,490 for the demolition, removal, and construction of the train station canopy. The payment will be paid back in whole in six years, starting the day of completion, with the funds coming from the enterprise of the enterprise fund known as the Old Trade Station account under the direction of the comptroller. Can I get a second?
I second.
Okay, any
I
further,
amended it, so.
any
I second.
further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by.
Wait, but she amended it, I didn't get a second.
Yeah,
I seconded it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I seconded it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So we're approving the amendments first?
We're
or-
voting.
No, the whole
Voting on the
Whole thing.
amended
What you
motion.
just
It's
read.
been restated.
What she said.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
I'm going back to my.
Awesome.
No, you gotta say for the whole
Huh?
meeting.
No one said there wasn't gonna be pain
Huh?
Grab a beer.
No one said there was pain
It was with me.
I may have to come over with some more due diligence later.
Was that- all right, good. Thank you.
Okay, because I really.
Thanks, everybody.
Like, see ya.
All right, next on our agenda is discussion of the budget process.
I made a suggestion that we table that due to the time.
Okay with that?
Yeah, it's just, that was so.
Can I have a second? Second?
Third.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we're going to, just need a motion to amend the agenda to push off the discussion of the budget process to the next table.
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 Official push off. Okay, so consideration of capital and capital non-recurring items.
This is awesome.
Did you have some backup on that already? Oh, okay.
No.
You're missing the whole thing.
So everybody has a handout?
Yeah.
Matt, to you please.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Earlier today, the Board of Selectmen met. As you recall, just to remind you, there was a long list of capital items that were originally presented by the Board of Selectmen. Board of Finance removed a substantial portion of those and moved them over to capital non-recurring, which is in the operating budget. So we will be moving through that list of items and prioritizing, getting hard quotes and bids where necessary. And the list you have in front of you is what the Board of Selectmen earlier today asked to proceed with, which are relatively urgent items. So these would be paid out of the 2018 capital CNR budget from the operating budget, which currently has a balance of $170,000, I think. So requesting funding for a couple of items for the two fire departments. For the mower, we are getting into heavy season for Park and Recreation, and that needs to be replaced. It's also the time that Eileen can get the field irrigation installed. And then two items, replacement of carpet in two offices. These have become safety issues. And those are high quotes, but the problem with that is the asbestos tile underneath had never been remediated back when this building was renovated. It was cut out as a cost-saving measure. So when we pull up the carpet, some of the tile comes apart, and then by occupational health standards, it has to all be remediated. So that's all included in those quotes. So I would respectfully ask for approval, no town meeting needed because this is within budget, but we'd ask for the funding from CNR to go ahead with the item shown.
I'm sorry, did you tell us, Bob, what we had in capital money
From last year, about 170,000.
170, and then this year's budget?
500.
500, so we have sufficient funds to approve this 68,000.
But I wouldn't say to use it all up at the beginning of the fiscal
Oh,
year.
no,
I mean,
no.
what we've always done is, you know, if there was something like these items that are in need, you take care of these, but, you know, you wait during the course of the year, just in case there's gonna be an emergency that pops up where you need, you know, the use of the 500,000.
I'll make a motion to approve the selectmen's request for $68,498.66 for the items specified.
And a second from Robert. Discussion. Bob, one question I have, are all these items included in the breakup that you had given us last year as to what was in that 170,000? I can't do the quick math.
It's in the capital plan from earlier in the season, yeah.
So it's-
Oh, yeah, there's nothing new in there.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Done. Thank you. Comptroller's report.
Okay, just a couple of items. Yesterday, we closed on our ban for
Yeah.
$24 million. $24,450,000. And last week, we actually sold the notes. We had 5 bids. The first one came in at, it was Oppenheimer, and it came in at 182, which was a really good bid. Considering that other towns were getting somewhere around 1.92% in that range. But as the other 4 continued to come in, they were dropping. And Jeffries was the winner at 159. So we borrowed $24,450,000 at 1.59% until November.
Well, to be clear, that's,
Nice one, Bob.
to be clear, that's for 6 months. So
Yes,
it's not-
yeah, I said
It's not a
so.
year.
It's not a year. It's due November 15th.
Right.
And then at that point, during the course of the rest of the year, we'll be discussing how we're gonna take care of the short-term debt, what we're gonna bond, and the consideration of 2022 or 23, whenever we wind up with the note for the 2 school renovations. But we'll just work our plan into it at that point. And whether or not we bond it in December or we do it in January, there's different alternatives. And I think we should just take care of it in December and move forward. The amount of interest is the same. The only problem is if we defer interest over an 18-month period, what is the difference in the note gonna be? I mean, if we're gonna get 275 or 2.8 for a long-term note, and we're paying it off in a normal course of the activity, which would be every year for 20 years or 25 years, but if you extend it out for let's say, 18 months before the first payment is gonna be made, there's gotta be some compensation to the owners of the bond. And so the fear is, especially later on in 6 months when rates are gonna be going up, are we gonna be paying more than we really should? So I would think that, and we can discuss this during the rest of the year, I think we should just do it at that point, pay the first month's interest charge, and then move forward and continue with an annual payment.
Well, I didn't hear what the Fed did today. Did it go up 25?
I didn't hear that, no. But which was 2.97 yesterday.
For the 10?
Yeah.
Yeah. And 3.1 for the 30.
I mean, so the rates, I mean, so if the short term continue to rise, I mean, they could be equal to the long term rates, if not inverted and even higher, so. And the other item that I wanted to speak about is just our position right now after May 31st, 11 months. I sent it out yesterday, this morning, but then I handed everybody a package. The first page is the revenue, and you'll see there that we're at a difference of $548,000 at this point, with 1 month of collections coming due. But in that number, we don't have interest that have accrued for the last couple of months, April and May, and also the Morgan Stanley interest. Last week, we received money from the state of Connecticut for municipal funding of $262,000. So that 548 at this point is down to about 197, 198. And certainly, I mean, we're gonna have a surplus in the revenue come the end of the year. It's not gonna be an issue at all. As far as the expenses, most of them are all pretty much in order. Just going down, the ones that I made notes of, probate, you see a negative deficit of $11,247. As I mentioned in prior meetings, we bill out the other 3 towns. That'll come right in line with the numbers that we budgeted. The town insurance is a deficit of $102,539. But we still, after the end of the fiscal year, we have to allocate to the utilities, and that's gonna clean that up. Fleet maintenance, there's, what was in fleet? It was okay, I would check them off there, let me just see page 9. The big thing in fleet maintenance was, if you look at the salary and negotiated salaries, we didn't have, and I think I mentioned this the last time, there was not a lead mechanic there, so we were charging the salaries to negotiated salaries, but when he was appointed, it came into 5101, which is the director of fleet maintenance. So between those 2 accounts, it's okay. And then there's a negative $17,000. But when you look at where it's coming from, it's the winter. The $13,000 in snow and ice overtime, working on the trucks, and then $21,000 for the police equipment, maintaining those during the winter time as well. So that's not going to be a concern. The highway department, 567 as surplus. They're working on the roads, and again, we're waiting for the bills to come in, so they take a while. That surplus will come down, but it's going to be a surplus, not going to be a deficit. The tree warden, I mean, the trees, I mean, 34,000, we had a problem a couple of weeks ago, everybody knows about, so, I mean, that's an issue there. The senior center is only showing us down at the bottom, $633 at this point, but there's if you look at the activities account, it's in a deficit position, but the revenue for the deficit, it's very similar to the Park and Rec, where the fees are in the fee schedule. So we budgeted last year for the senior center $30,000. They already have $65,000 in there for revenue. So they more than exceed the amount of money that they have a deficit in the activities account. And debt service, you see that there's a remaining balance of $848. Well, we're going to make that final payment. We're actually going to do it Thursday. It's due on Friday. We have to transfer $22 million, and we actually moved from Morgan Stanley about $5 million just to make sure we had a nice buffer in the general fund to move it out, because it comes in. We could, if we wanted to, make the payment after we receive the funding on the sale we just did. I just think the rating companies, when they see we make the payment ahead of time, they know that we're in good shape. We're able to fund our own balances. So I like to do it a day ahead of time, if not the first thing in the morning before the money actually comes in. So the Board of Ed, that $8.8 million, there's a $5 million payment that's going to be due and the last day of school to the teachers. And, you know, when I first came here 8 years ago, that kept me up at night. I didn't know where I was going to get $5 million for the salaries. And it turned out that it's there, but it's a scary thing. You know? Yeah. So that number's going to come down big time, you know. And then, of course, they're going to leave the $862,000 there for, you know, the difference in the ECS funding, you know, so.
Larry's here, we can just send him over and tell the teachers they'll be late.
That's right, that they're not going to get a check for the summer.
Oh, I see, okay.
I don't think they like that.
Did you, if you said the amount, I wasn't, I'm spaced, I didn't hear it. Did you have a projected amount
Surplus?
that was gonna be left? Yeah.
No, not yet, because there's too many moving parts right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we continue to get bills into September,
Sure.
you know, so, but, I mean, we're in good shape.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess we're probably gonna be a surplus over $1 million
Nice.
between revenue and expenses.
That was nice.
Yeah.
a long way towards debt.
Mhm.
Bob, I just had one question, and I'm sure you've explained this to me, to us before, I just don't remember. In employee benefits, there's a large kind of underage, most of it's hospitalization. What is that?
Well, that's the amount of money we pay for the hospitalization for the employees. We moved them all out within the last year or so. You gotta remember, we built this budget 18 months ago.
Yeah.
Prior to moving most of the unions and the classified into their partnership plan. And those are, savings, based on, when we were with Anthem, and it wasn't the partnership plan, it was just a regular PPO, I mean, the cost was significantly higher, so that's where that's coming from. I mean, we still have another payment, it's gonna come down,
But there's gonna be a surplus.
there's gonna be some.
That was kind of where I was going, so that's gonna add to the surplus.
Yes. But at the same time, if you've got accounts in there that are in a deficit position, that supports them too.
Kind of that cross allocation we do. on some-
Yeah, I mean, so let's say the fleet maintenance, town insurance, 102 deficit, if that didn't change, at the end of the year, we do all the transfers, all right? So you would apply that 102 to the 1.7.
Is there any expected payments in the last 2 weeks?
On that account?
Yeah.
Well, we just have the last month and that would be it. In fact, in June, it was probably paid early June.
So a good portion of the 1.1 is going to be there?
Still gonna be there, yeah. The other part is, in there is the pensions, which is gonna be paid down too, because we pay 100% of, it used to be the ARC, but now it's, ADC.
So the
Actuary
540,
determined calculation.
Oh, please.
Yeah, they changed the acronym
Oh, that's so funny.
from ARC to ADC.
the 514 is likely not going to be.
It's not gonna be there, no,
The 1.137 will.
maybe a little bit less,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And then there's also another pension in there. Is there a small amount due on the town side?
67.
Yeah, that'll be paid down too.
Good. Any other questions? No questions, entertain a motion to
Adjourn.
adjourn. Second? All right, all those in favor?
Wendy?
Wendy first, Robert second.